You'll never see another guy like me if you look to be 5,000. I'll always be me. I'll always be a one of a kind till the day I die.
The room is velvet, shadows thick and deep. Every secret here is mine to keep. I don't talk, I just nod, they obey. A whisper cuts sharper than a blade. Gold rings on the table, lives in the air. Who holds the power? The man in the chair. He who has the king's ear is king. It's not the crown, it's the voice that sings. Loyalty folds like cards in the wind. He who has the king's ear is king. Smoke curls like ghosts around the light. Deals get signed in the dead of night. I don't need a throne, don't need a name. My word alone sets the world aflame. The dice don't roll unless I say go. The tide don't turn unless I say so. The boss is the shadow, the voice in your fear. The crown don't matter, it's the king's ear. He who has the king's ear is king. It's not the crown, it's the voice that sings.
All right, we are live once again with Louis Kasman on American Made. Hope everyone is doing well. Louis, what's going on, man?
Hey, Jesse, how are you?
Doing good, man. How's
Good.
everything been?
Good.
Good, man.
See, I'm a little bit banged up over here. I was at that storage place, and I guess there's some stuff John didn't want me to bring out of that storage place. So this box from the top came and hit me in the face. But
yeah, I remember you called me. You were a little banged up.
Yeah. So what's going on, Jess?
Not much, man. I'm ready for another good show.
We got some good stuff tonight.
Yep. Before we jump over here to the comments to do some shout outs, I wanted to, now that we have started the show, I wanted to publicly wish Louis Kasman a happy birthday. Louis, you just had a birthday the other day.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. I did. Thank you so much. Very kind of you to remember and to offer that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Let's jump over here to the comments, and looks like we've got almost 70 people already, which is a good start.
Mm-hmm.
Scott's here. He says, "Hey, brothers."
What's up, Scott? Glad you're back, man.
Tin Pail TV, what's up?
Yeah, glad you're here, Tin Pail.
Los Angeles.
Hi.
Rocco, good evening, gentlemen. Hope you had a great weekend. See who else we got. Matthew, looking forward to another great show. Glad you're here, man.
Oh.
Harry says, "Jesse, great job with the series with Louis Kasman."
What's up, Harry? What's up, Harry? Glad you're here, Harry.
Matthew says, "What's up, Louis and Jesse?"
Hey, Matt.
Hey, guys. Big Jim from Scranton.
Yeah. Oh, can always rely on Jim. He's always here.
Yeah, he is. Queen and King. Hey, guys. Should be a great show. Glad you're here.
Glad you're here.
Johnny Boy says, "Good Sunday to all." DB's here. He says, "Hey, Johnny Boy." Johnny Boy's going to grab the popcorn. Hey guys, glad to catch you live. Let's get to one more. G Shippy says, "Happy birthday, Lewis."
Thank you.
Another happy birthday.
Thank you.
Who is this? Ori Spado says, "Happy birthday."
Thank you, Ori.
All right, Lewis, before we get going, do you have any shout outs or anything you want to say right here at the beginning?
Yeah, I want to say hello to my friend Frankie. I want to say hello to Paulie Walnuts. Who else? Of course, loyal friend Scott Dorio and Jim Mulderig from Scranton. Thank you. And, something I want to mention, Jesse, at the beginning of the program. We're near Thanksgiving and we're near Christmas. And if anybody has any friends, family that are incarcerated, it's a good time to send commissary, send something. Because when you're incarcerated, and if you're not fortunate to have commissary or have someone that's looking out for you, it's kind of shitty. So if anybody has any friends in the federal system, you can just go on Inmate Locator, Federal Bureau of Prisons, put in their name, their sex, and then their inmate number will come up, and you can go on Western Union and you could send them anything, $25, whatever you want. If they're in a state facility, log into your state, do the same, their name, their sex, and whatever you could send, it's really appreciated by people that are incarcerated. And this year, I'm going to be looking out for Norman DuPont, the former manager of the Ravenite, and my old childhood friend, Phil Baroni, the former MMA boxer who worked for me back in the day as a bouncer in Spratz on Long Island and my other bar, Virago, in Rockville Center. And Phil is still incarcerated. We're going to do a show on him, Jesse and myself, in the future. But Phil is still incarcerated in Mexico, and he has not gone to trial. He's still pending trial. And I speak with him almost every day. He's doing good. He has commissary, he has anything he needs. But he's definitely suffering. But, yeah, we're going to do a show on him. So like I said, if anybody has any family or friends that are incarcerated, it's a good time of year to, to look out for them. And this year, like I said, I'll be looking out for Norman DuPont, who's doing life, the former manager of the Ravenite, and my friend Phil Basile, my bad, and my friend Phil Baroni, who's incarcerated in a Mexico prison. So back to you, Jess.
Well, that sounds good, Lewis. That's something good to keep in mind, like you said, as we get closer to the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas. We've got almost 100 people already, Lewis, so we're off to a good start. I want to remind everyone to hit that like button on this video, subscribe to the channel. We've hit that 16,000 subscribers and still climbing, so appreciate that. I wanted to ask you, we were talking earlier, you and I, Lewis, and you were telling me some things regarding Judge Glasser. I know we spoke about him before, but you were telling me some interesting connections that he had that we've never really spoke about before. Do you want to get into that a little bit?
Of course. So, yeah, Jesse, Judge Glasser, everybody remembers Michael Coiro, or some people know him as Mike Corio. His name is Michael Coiro. He was the go-to Gambino, Lucchese, Colombo, Bonanno attorney and Genovese. But basically, his loyalty was with Gene Gotti, Angelo Ruggiero, John Gotti, and the Gambino crew. Mike goes to Brooklyn Law School. Judge Glasser is the dean of Brooklyn Law School at that time. Judge Glasser's secretary is a lady by the name of Stephanie Zvitsevich. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but Stephanie Zvitsevich. That's Judge Glass's law secretary. And like I said, Mike Coiro is a student at Brooklyn Law School. Mike Coiro starts dating Judge Glass's secretary, Stephanie. Mike Coiro graduates Brooklyn Law School, marries Judge Glass's secretary, while Judge Glasser is the dean at Brooklyn Law School, and it becomes Mr. and Mrs. Michael Coiro. Now her name is Stephanie, middle initial R, Coiro. And the reason I bring this up is because, you know, I'm big on this whole conspiracy theory stuff. And while they may say wise guys or people, associates, people that are involved or close to the mob, you know, no ethics, we have no ethics, okay? True or not true, you guys be the judge of that. Some of us do, some of us don't. However, Judge Glasser is a federal judge. Years go by, and he becomes now the judge that made him famous, the Gotti judge, as he's known as.
Yep.
And Judge Glasser, I don't know whether he had an ethical responsibility to disclose that, or just because he comes off as Mr. Ethics, or he wants everyone to think I'm Mr. Ethics. He didn't put it out there. He kept it quiet. He never told anybody that, hey, by the way, fellas, you know who my secretary was while I was the dean at Brooklyn Law School? Mike Coiro. Keep in mind, Mike Coiro represented every major player in the Gambino family. Player, non-player, associate, made guy, unmade guy, shelved guy, unshelved guy. Never disclosed it. That being said, it goes to the whole pattern of now you have Judge Glasser who doesn't disclose that. And like I said, I don't know whether he really had an obligation under the judicial canons, but he certainly should have put it out there. Because remember, Mike was also subpoenaed by the government to testify in John's case.
Yeah.
And it's the same Judge Glasser that violates Bruce Cutler of Local Rule 7, talking to the media, holds Bruce in contempt. And it's the same prosecutor, John Gleason, who does not disclose his wife, Judge Gleason's wife, has a relative related to John J. Gotti. So, you know, whether it's right, whether you want to call me a conspiracy theory guy, I wasn't the judge. I never passed myself off as this ethical dean, great guy. You know, I'm all about the law. All I'm saying is he should have disclosed. He should have just put it out there and say, listen, you know, Coiro's wife worked for me 20 years ago. May mean nothing, but you know what? Someone's going to bring it up. Yeah, someone did bring it up, but we brought it up 25 years later or 20 years later. Judge Glasser should have brought it up, just like Gleason should have brought it up. See, Gleason had an obligation to bring it up because that was a direct connection. But Glasser also had an obligation, in my opinion, because Coiro was subpoenaed by the government, and they called Coiro as almost their last witness after Gleason withdrew his subpoena against me, barring me from coming into that courtroom until John stood up in the courtroom and attacked Judge Glasser to make a ruling in that matter. So, yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know that about holier than thou Judge Glasser and my church-going friend, John Gleason. Yeah. Can't have it both ways, Your Honor. Can't have it both ways, Holy Roller. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like you and I have spoke before, you know, it didn't seem like they wanted to let any of these connections get in the way of convicting John Gotti, whether he was actually guilty or not guilty. You know, they were going to convict him, you know, either
Well,
way.
it,
So
it, it was listen, it was get Gotti at any cost. Break the rules, do what you got to do. We're on your side. The FBI is on your side. We're all on your side. There'll be no penalties. Bush is in the White House now. Don't worry. Trump is 100 years away at this point. The FBI is, under control. So you guys do what you have to do. Just put John in jail, convict him. Just like the juror, just like that lady who had them, who was reading a newspaper article. So the government says. But where'd that article come from? And who put it there? And who told the government it was there?
Yeah. Once you and I spoke earlier, I was looking up some stuff on Glasser. He was the dean, like you said, from 1977 to 1981. Before that, he was a professor from 1948 to 1969, which I thought,
good research, Jesse. So,
I was just,
I rest my case.
Yeah. Also, Lewis, you and I were speaking earlier. You were telling me a story about someone moved into Glasser's neighborhood. Could you talk about that a little bit? I thought that was pretty interesting.
Sure. While I was cooperating with the government, Judge Glasser sent a message to the FBI. He was concerned about an individual with an Italian last name that moved into his neighborhood. And the FBI couldn't get a handle on it. So he directly said to Bruce Mao, then head of the Gambino squad, can't you go to Louis Kasman and ask Louis if he could find out if this guy's a mafia guy? So they came to me, and I was reluctant, and they said, no, you should do that. The guy specifically mentioned it. I said, really? When he gave me 7 months in jail, he wasn't thinking of that then, was he? He could have given me no time in jail, a home confinement. Yeah. But all right, whatever. Make sure it's in my 5K1 letter. So, and by the way, it wasn't in my 5K1 letter. So we'll talk about that. So I go to Pete, and obviously Pete didn't know anything at that point with my arrangement. And I say, Pete, you got to find out about this guy. And he says to me, why? Why are you asking? I said, Judge Glasser is concerned about this guy. He said, well, how would you know that? I said, because the FBI came to me. He said, the FBI came to you? I said, yeah. He says, why would they come to you? I says, Judge Glasser specifically said maybe, I guess he knew it wasn't hard to bullshit Pete. So I said, because Judge Glasser figured I would go to you. And, Pete, you're going to have a case in that building. And at least, it's not like you're doing anything wrong. You're just going to find out if this guy's anybody. He's not asking you to do anything. The FBI will take the ball at that point. So it took Pete about a day or two. Pete came back to me and said, I don't know why I'm doing this, but okay, I'm doing it. He said, and the guy's a nobody. We don't know him. I don't know who he is. Nobody knows who he is. So you could tell your friend, Judge Glasser, not to worry. I says, Pete, number one, he's not my friend. And number two, you have a case in that building. I says, and at least, you didn't do anything wrong. You're not cooperating. It's not like they were out to get this guy. He was just concerned. So I went back and told Bruce Mao that this guy is, from what Peter Gotti told me, was not anybody of any concern. So when I went before Judge Garifas, and of course, from what I understand, the FBI, they're all liars, but from what I understand, he was thankful. Not that I cared that he was thankful, but I thought it would help my cause. So when I walk into court, of course, my sister Angel Gotti was there. And before he proceeded with my sentencing, he said, Louis, I want you to come into my chambers for a few minutes. So I thought that was kind of unusual. And the courtroom was packed out. So I go into the back in his chambers. He says, for obvious reasons, for the security of other judges in the building, It's not in your 5K1. However, it's in your probation report. And whatever sentence I'm going to give you, I'm taking that into account. And then he turns and he pats me up, grabs my shoulder, and he turns to me, says, by the way, where are you going after this proceeding? I says, hopefully home. And he goes like this. We go back into court. Oh, he says to me, and by the way, you don't have to say anything in court. I'll do all the talking. This is Judge Garifas. This is the kind of man he was. But I said a few words anyway. And he sent me home, just like he said he would. Mm. Yeah. Imagine, this is the kind of judge this man was. Garifas has a pair this big. He doesn't fuck the FBI. He's not intimidated by the FBI. He doesn't give a fuck about the U.S. attorneys. He's the one that handles, he's the heavy lifter in the Easton back in those days. He handled the FDNY case, the Rikers Island case, and he's a Queens guy.
Yeah.
So, so that's what transpired during that whole period.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was just interesting that Glasser put all this in motion, this investigating who's this guy, because an Italian guy moved in the neighborhood, and he was that concerned that he wanted to find out who it was. That's an interesting story.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah,
but how would, now let me ask you this: how would at that time, how did Judge Glasser know about my relationship with the Bureau? That's supposed to be, quiet. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
How would a sitting district court judge know? Now, obviously, Judge Garifas knew because he's privy to those sealed documents.
Yeah.
So you understand?
That's a good question.
Well, it's simply answered. There are no secrets. From the minute you go into bed with the government, everyone in that building knows. Secretaries know, clerks know, marshals know.
Yeah.
You just got to hope that they keep it quiet. But the proof is Judge Glasser knew.
Yeah, I think once that begins, I think you're at their disposal.
You're at their mercy. You're at their disposal. They lie, they cheat, and they manipulate you. And you are in a no-win situation. And if you're their star, you can lie. In fact, they help you to lie. They assist you in lying.
Yeah.
And they encourage you to lie. It's a means to an end. Back in that day, I don't think now it's that prevalent because this organized crime is not such a focus of this Department of Justice. But back then, it was organized crime and terrorism. That was the government's focus. Things have changed since then.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned Pete Gotti. He was the boss during that period, the acting boss.
He was the acting boss, yeah.
Yeah. We need to I want to get into some more with him, during that time period. We spoke a little bit about it, but are there any other stories, about Pete Gotti during this time that he was acting boss that you can recall off the top of your head? Anything interesting?
Pete had a girlfriend in Rockville Center. And I had a bar in Rockville Center, which Pete was my partner, and called Virago, Verago, Virago Bar in Rockville Center. And so Pete didn't like to go to a hotel or a motel with the girl. So during the day, the bar was closed. We were only open three days a week. So I gave Pete a key. And he used to go into the bar and hang out with the girl. Mm. They'd put the music on and hang out. So one day the cleaning crew got there and they walked in on Pete with the Gumata. So the cleaning guy was startled. Pete was startled, and he called me up. He says, "You motherfucker." I said, "Pete, I told you the cleaning crew goes in there. You can get a hotel in Rockville Center on Sunrise Highway for $90. So it's a funny story.
Yeah.
But Pete was he was a character. He would take Marjorie bowling. He would take her play tennis. I says, "Pete, do you understand you're a boss? Do you understand you're a gangster? How many gangsters are playing tennis? How many gangsters are on the bowling alley?" I says, "Don't let your brother find out that you're playing. You know, you're on the bowling alley and wearing bowling shoes." So one day I went and I caught him at the bowling alley. His face got all red. His eyeball came out of his head. So yeah, I used to break his balls a lot. But yeah, I thought he was my friend. He wasn't my friend.
Yeah.
He just needed me because he didn't want me to say anything to his brother. Because remember, Pete was coming to my house to get John's call.
Oh, okay.
Quite often. So you know, and he would always, you know, don't say nothing to my brother, Jew boy. Be nice, be a nice Jew. Yeah. I say, you be a good Uncle Pete, and I'll be a nice Jew.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to get into that, you know, maybe another show or something. But, you know, we've talked a lot about, you know, your relationship with John, but once he's incarcerated, you know, Pete, he's the acting boss. You know, you had this kind of tumultuous relationship with him, you know, like you said, you thought he was your friend, but you know, you're kind of just
listen, he played me and I played him, but he had a clear, obviously, when I say he had to talk to me about certain things directly regarding his brother's life. And we'll just leave it at that. And regarding his brother's financial situation and his brother's family. So he had no choice about that. And he didn't know at the time, although maybe he did. John and I, we had a way of communicating when he would call me and in writing, unbeknownst to the government and unbeknownst to Pete and unbeknownst to anybody. So, and John and I made that up when he was in the MCC. You know, because, you know, when you have the boss's ear, Jesse, you know, and I had that ear. So, you know, that was my line of communication.
Yeah.
And John never forgot that, and nor did I. So we'll get into we could do a whole show on my Uncle Pete.
Yeah, we'll have to do that. We'll talk about that. Yeah, and I thought it was interesting last week. You know, you had a couple letters from Pete that was really interesting, you know, because like I said, we've talked a lot about John and your relationship with him, but you know, hearing a little bit about Pete and you know, your correspondence with him was pretty interesting.
Well, I told you, Jesse, when I had the restaurant in Freeport, Hudson and McCoy, with my friend Frankie Basile, Pete used to sit on with this associate, Emil. Emil was around JoJo, and Pete used to sit on his terrace in his condominium with binoculars and try and count how many people we were doing. But the problem was, after 10, there was a problem for Pete because, you know, 10 was Pete's number. So 11, 12, you know, so Emil told me, he says, "Louis, I used to have to coax him after that." So one day I gave Pete one of these clickers we used to have. Guy stands at the door to count how many people come in. So as a joke, I says, "Here, Pete, here's this clicker so you could count." He said, "What's this for?" I said, "So you could count how many people are in the place. So you don't have to strain yourself because you only got that one eye working." He didn't have a clue what I was talking about. It just went right over his head.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
But you gotta love him. You know, you gotta love him. He was in over his head. So it went over his head and he was in over his head.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to bring up something you were telling me earlier, something you and I discussed. I know you talk to a lot of people, you hear a lot of things, you know, about that life. You were telling me something earlier about a social club that you may or may not have heard something about. Do you want to get into that at all?
Yeah, well, I'll talk about that in a little simplified way for now.
Okay.
I understand that there's a social club that's opening up or opened up in Ozone Park.
Mm.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy when when inmates, be it organized crime guys or stockbrokers or bank guys, whatever it is, when you apply for a compassionate release and you're able to convince a district court judge and he grants it. And then you have guys that apply for compassionate releases, their kidneys are coming out, they have cancer, their eyes, this, that. And then they decide to hang it out again. That's not a good thing because the people that truly, whether you're a wise guy or not, there are people that truly need compassionate release to get the proper medical care because there is no medical care in the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Unless you're Giselle Maxwell, then maybe you'll get a little bit more treatment. But be careful what you ask for. If you ask for it and a judge finds you deserving of it, do the right thing. Stay off the avenue. Stay out of clubs. Do the right thing. Because you're hurting yourself because you'll get thrown back in. You're still on probation. You will get thrown back in and you'll never see the light of day. And then people that come ahead of you will never get compassionate release because they won't trust anybody. Because remember, all these judges talk. They all eat in the same lunchroom. They all ride the same elevator. And they all park their car in the same underground garage. Yep. So if you apply for compassionate release and you get it, respect it, honor it, and treasure it. Don't abuse it.
Yep. Yeah, I just thought that was interesting. I know people tell you, you hear things may or may not be true, but I just thought that was interesting because I know that particular area is in the past been a stronghold, for certain Gambino guys. So, yeah, I mean, they got to be careful if that's true.
Of course. I mean, I'm not saying it's true or not. Because I don't know if my sources are right or not. But if it's not true, my deepest apologies. If it's true, you're only hurting people that come after you. You're being selfish.
Yeah.
Hey, Tin Pail mentions this thing about Mike Coiro getting 10 years. Mike Coiro got 8 years, old law, which basically means he had to do almost the whole 8 years. Yeah. So you definitely do your work, Tin Pail, but you're off by 2 years on Mike Coiro.
Yeah.
And Jesse, Mike Coiro's uncle was this guy, Joe Petrosino, the former NYPD back in the 1900s, organized crime cop. Famous organ. They have a big statue by the NYPD of Joe Petrosino. That was Mike Coiro's uncle. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, it is. And just I know
what a web we weave, huh?
Yeah. I know we've spoke about this before. You've spoke about it several times, but just for anyone new, Mike Coiro, he's the guy that kind of brings you in and introduces you to a lot of these guys. So
correct. I meet Mike Coiro when I'm 17 years old. Mike Coiro lives in Merrick, and my family and we moved to Merrick. And Mike Coiro is my next door neighbor, and I have Mike to thank for introducing me to the Gambino organized crime family.
Yeah.
Which, aside from John and Jeannie, I have no problem with that. Right. And even Angelo, I liked Angelo. Maybe I just justify it in my mind. But remember, when I got married, Jesse, it was Jeannie, Gotti, and Angelo that made me my bachelor party.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that. How was where did he? Where did you do it at? Where did they do it at?
In this restaurant. You know what? It's a lot of years later. I forget the name, but one of their restaurants in Queens. I believe Frankie Russo owned it, and who's very close to Jeannie till this day. They made it over there, and it was Jeannie and Angelo coordinated that for me.
All right. Let's what do you think, Lewis? I know you and I spoke a minute ago. You know, on the last video we did, the last live we did, you talked about cleaning out your desk. You found some really interesting letters in there. I think a lot of people, we've got a big reaction in the comments from a lot of those letters. You mentioned to me earlier, you had you found a couple more. Did you want to get into those or hold those for later?
We can hold those for later, but it's another letter from Tony McGalley, and another letter from Anthony Muscatello, and another letter from Ronnie One Arm Trucchio. But you know, we could get into those a little bit later. If you want to get to some of the questions, you know, some of the comments, you might want to do that. It's up to you, Jess.
Yeah, we'll switch gears and jump over here to the
back.
comments. I've seen a couple of good ones go through. Let's jump over here and check it out. Before we do that, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. Be sure to do that. Let's get over here and let me know, Lewis, if you see any good ones.
It's not a good one. It's a funny one. Do I ever wear a sport jacket? I try not to since I'm in Florida. And I would say funerals, but I don't go to funerals. So I don't wear a sport jacket, no. Why, you guys don't like my casual attire? It's my old Vineyard Vine shirt.
Peter says, Lewis, I've been dying to find out about DuPont. What happened that he's doing life?
I believe he was convicted of a murder. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, he is doing life. I believe he's in New Jersey, at a federal prison in New Jersey. Yeah.
I'm going back a little bit. Joey says, what's up, fellas? Always looking forward to hearing Lewis speak about his past.
Thank you, Joey. We all have a past. That's what makes us who we are, really, I guess. Tin Pail wants to know if I was fighting with somebody. Yeah, I was fighting with JJ. Not my wife either, Jamie. No. Yeah, she's my ex-wife.
Spanky says, happy birthday, Lewis. Joined in late.
Thank you, Spanky.
Let's see what we got here. Used to go to Sprat's. Had no idea that you ran it.
Yep. I don't remember you. Did I charge you with the door?
Matthew says, Lewis, is it true Pete had a girlfriend that offed herself?
Well, that's the original theory on it, is that she offed herself in the Red Roof Hotel in Westbury, Long Island. She was found with a bag around her head, duct taped. That's the police report on that. This is the same Marjorie that was sending letters to Judge Frederick Block, who was Pete's judge on the case, you know, begging for mercy. And this is before the case was even sent out to the jury. And when Pete found out about that, Pete went crazy. So I don't know whether she felt rejected because she was a little bit unstable. Lovely lady, but a little bit very unstable. And her son, Troy, worked for me at Hudson and McCoy. And he used to complain to Pete that we worked him too hard. So he was a barback. He was making $400 a day as a barback and tips alone, and he was complaining to my uncle. So yeah, the police said that she offed herself. I believe that Richie Gotti killed her. That's my opinion. I have no proof of that. I have no fact of that. That's just my feeling. Because she was writing letters and carrying on in the courtroom and carrying on with the judge and wanted to run away with Pete and all this kind of craziness. So, but I guess for the purposes of what the police say, she offed herself. Duct tape around her head with a plastic bag around her head.
Yeah, I'm not to get, graphic, I'm not saying it's impossible, but seems a little difficult to do that to yourself, but
yeah, either got to be totally out of your mind.
Yeah.
Or what happened? Rocco says, I don't see Phil Barone beating that case. Well, Rocco, let me just, I went ahead of Jesse on this. As you all know, Mexico's corrupt. It's dirty corrupt. Phil was never, he was charged, but they don't have an official charge against him. He's never been brought to trial. The MRIs of his brain show when you're a boxer and you're constantly fighting, Jesse, your brain is beat up. So it shows brain damage. And the judge won't let that in. So the case is set for hearing. It never went anywhere. And it's a mess. But now I got Phil a lawyer. So Phil has representation, if you want to call it that. And I got the embassy involved, the United States Embassy, which they were never involved. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm trying to help Phil. It's funny, Jess, when he used to work for me at the clubs, when you had Phil Barone working for you, he was like two bouncers in one. Wherever there was a fight, all you had to do was look for Phil, and Phil was in the middle of the fight. So if there was a fight on the dance floor, I would say to the guy on the walkie-talkie, well, where's Phil? All you had to do was go look. Wherever the fight was, just look for the fight, and there you'll find Phil. Yeah. Very tough kid. He's not a kid anymore, but at that point, he was tough. But yeah. So let's hope that at least he gets good lawyering, and maybe we could get him into a federal prison in this country. I don't know, but we're definitely looking out for him and praying for him.
Yeah.
And Jess, John Alight was helping him also. I don't know if Alight is still helping him, but according to Phil, he hasn't heard from Alight in a while. But for a while, John Alight was looking out for him. Yeah.
Now that you mentioned that, I think I have heard him say that publicly, like on his videos and stuff.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You were talking about Pete Gotti playing tennis. Rocco says gangsters got to have hobbies too.
That's true, Rocco. But tennis with your Gumata in Rockville Center, how would that picture look being sent into Marion or Springfield? Hey, Chief.
What do you think John would say?
Oh my God, John, he would have went like this. Let me ask you something, Pete. I know you're a fucking moron. You always were a fucking moron. What were you doing on the tennis court with that girl? Who is she? Yeah, he would have wiped him up pretty good. He would have said, I'm not away 100 years, Pete. Do better, my brother. With a couple of expletives in there.
Yeah. Matthew says, Lewis, did you ever have a talk with John that might have saved someone's life?
I did.
You want to
save someone's life and save somebody from save someone from getting slapped around and save someone from getting motherfuckered. So yeah. They know who they are. One guy is dead, died of natural causes. He was about 400 pounds. Fat Georgie. One guy was Tommy Gambino. That he didn't. I pleaded with him not to abuse him on a situation that Tommy should have been reprimanded on. And he listened to me. So yeah, there was a few instances.
Yeah, I do remember you. You spoke about that before.
That were brought to my attention. But I had to be careful who I would advocate for. I would have to make sure that I was in the right, or the guy was in the right, and that I wasn't, just being used to get to his ear to advocate for someone. So I had to do my little bit of research.
Yeah. Someone's asking about any American-made merchandise.
Working on it.
We're working on it. and we'll make that announcement. Make sure everybody knows about it
before the holidays, Jess.
Yeah, I'm on top of it. Pinty Studios says, Jesse, you need to add Lewis to the picture behind you.
I'm going to send you my baby picture.
Yeah, I could get you put in this behind me with Tony Soprano and all those guys. Harry says Lewis didn't rat. The Gottis went after him after John died.
100%. And when you say the Gottis, Richie Gotti, Pete Gotti, yes. And John A., but he did it more on the down low, thinking I didn't know. But everybody he was plotting with used to come to tell me about his plots. So, but I know about that long before John died, because you know something? John warned me.
Yeah.
John warned me. Listen, what stronger message could anybody give anybody in the life or out of life that you're the only person to eulogize this man? There's no stronger message.
Right. And to add to that, Queen and King says, Lewis, for the haters, if you weren't close with John, why would he be the godfather of your child?
Correct. 100%. And do you guys know that from the entire time John is incarcerated till basically the last, I want to say, year before he passes, he never missed any of my kids' birthdays financially. Never missed a birthday. Never missed a card. I have the cards that he would send to my kids. Never missed it. Never missed my birthday. Never. And you always get the birthday cards, either handwritten or you buy them at the commissary there a week in advance. Because remember, when you're locked up in a cage, you're living your life through your mail. That's what it winds up to be. You live your life through your mail.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that his mail was important to him, because there's
Absolutely.
a video out there where he's discussing this, about the mail he receives, replying to people. So, like you said, he's living through his mail. He's living through
and Vicky, his daughter Vicky, and myself, we were the recipients of his old mail. He would pack up boxes, send some to Vicky and send some to me. Yeah.
DB was replying to Tin Pail. He said, I believe Lewis wore the wire because the Gottis threatened his life after John died. You would have wore the same wire.
Well, I appreciate that, DB, but it wasn't a direct threat. It was there. You could just see it. Richie wasn't doing anything. He was just disrespectful at times, but Richie wasn't making any move. Junior was treacherous, but he wasn't making any move because they didn't know. See, this was the whole thing. Does Lewis, do you really think he has any of John's loot? So I think in Junior's mind, and I'm not saying I do or I don't, or I did and I don't, but they didn't want to run that risk. So I think I was worth more to them alive than dead, because dead they were getting nothing, and alive they got nothing, assuming that I had any of John's loot. And whatever I had or didn't have, he wanted me to have. He made sure I had, because Pete got cute, and I had to talk to John in our language, and the next day Pete didn't say a word to me. Didn't say a word. I might say the next day. Could have been a week later. But shortly thereafter, whatever was supposed to have been was. So, like I said, that's the way it was. That's the way it is. And love me or hate me, these are his wishes. And he did for me and my family what he wanted to do. He was the boss. He died for being the boss, and he died for what he believed in. Pete didn't die for what he believed in. None of these other people died for what they believed in. Richie did 100 years for what he believed in. Richie couldn't do 100 days. Jeannie Gotti did what did he do, 40 years? You know, the closest one to a Gotti, to a John, is a Gene. You know,
yeah,
you can't ever question anything about Gene Gotti, ever. And John regretted not letting Jeannie take that plea. Regretted it, because there would have been no Sammy after DeChico gets blown up. Would have been no Sammy. I mean, we don't know who could have been in that car. You know, it could have been Jeannie, it could have been anybody, but there wouldn't have been a Sammy or a Puke.
Yeah.
So, you know, that debunks everybody's theory about Kasman and this. Kasman took care of a mob boss. No skippers. Me and Jackie. And Jackie couldn't handle it. When he was off his rocker, it was me. You know? Tony Musk could vouch for that. These people, all those guys from 101st Avenue knew there was only one person that John, that had that calming, you know, figure for John.
Yeah.
So.
G Shippy says, why couldn't you see John in Marion or go to his trial?
Well, I'll start with Marion. At his trial, they subpoenaed me. And that was just a ploy because they didn't want me in the courtroom. And they didn't want the jurors to see somebody like myself close to a John Gotti. They only wanted to see thugs and that element. And as far as Marion, that warden, the concierge warden, Bill Hedrick, he deemed me a threat to institutional security. They said I was going to break John out of Marion. But once a month, I flew to Marion. Every time Junior went to Marion, I went with Junior before Junior caught that case. And because John would say to him, is Lewis here? John would say, yes. Yes, Dad. I used to tease John all the time. Yes, Dad. You know, yeah. Listen, you know, Jesse, I have my issues with John Jr., but I have to tell you, you know, back then I loved him. There wasn't anything I wouldn't do for him. He was devoted to his father. The government played it right. They knew. Listen, John Jr. is very, very tough, very, very strong. I used to tease him all the time. We used to say, I said, John, how are you? He'd say, I'm strong. So I nicknamed him Strong. And they hit him with case after case after case, you know, one after another after another. And but he was very devoted to his father, you know, albeit there was a lot of money for him, yes. But, you know, he was on the street. He was a street boss. And he did the best he could do, love him or hate him, like him or hate him. He did the best what he was capable of, but he was very devoted to his father. His job was running the street. My job was taking care of John any way that I could while he was incarcerated. Lawyers, doctors, whatever I could do was done at the highest level. And those were the functions. And, you know, so in all fairness, you know, maybe Junior is hurt by me, but I'm more hurt by him. He did a lot of skullduggery things that I knew about. I should have confronted him, and I never did. And not out of fear, because we didn't have that type of relationship, because Peter was on my side all the time, because Peter and I would talk. And besides John wanting to marrying Angel, which I would never do, or getting together with Vicky, he also wanted Peter to be in business with me. He says, I just want to know, before I put my head down, that you have Peter under your wing, under your umbrella, so to speak. And I failed in that regard. But not because I didn't want to, But because there was too many Uncle Pete's, and Junior was incarcerated, and Junior was working behind the scenes against me, and everybody that Junior would badmouth me to or would say things to were coming back to me. They would come to me at Hudson and McCoy and say, Junior said this about you. Junior said that about you. And I would chase them. I'd say, don't talk to me about Junior. But it was in my head, Jesse.
Yeah.
Because the things that they were saying could only come from Junior.
So even though you didn't want to hear it, you knew they were true because they were
I knew they were true. I knew they were true. Because I wasn't hearing them from Peter, because Peter would never say those things. And Peter would have told him what to go and do with himself. Young Peter, as I call him. He's a grown man now. But yeah, that was John's wish. He says, if you could just keep Peter with you, put him in business, open a business, take him with you, just make sure Peter's okay. And like I said, Peter was his favorite. Loved Peter to death. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had to know Peter. Peter, another crazy, tough, but Peter loved his father, adored his father.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
DB says, Lewis, do you believe Sammy when he said that he and Frank Locascio were going to whack John if they all got out?
Yeah. Never, ever in life. That's Puke putting a spin on it. See what bothered Sammy was the money, Jack Russo, and Nick Sciabetta. I don't know which order you want to put it in, but that's what was worrying Sammy. Because Sammy couldn't do any time. What kind of man puts his kid into the junk business? What kind of man are you? You want he put your rod into the junk business. You got to be a real lowlife. Even Scars wouldn't do something like that. Even Mikey DiLeonardo wouldn't do something like that. Not Sammy. Anything for $1. Put your kid in the junk business. I don't know how to describe somebody like that.
Yeah.
After he admits, it's the same old story.
Harry says, who was the highest ranking non-Gambino family member that you met?
Highest non-ranking. Everybody. Who didn't I meet in the Gambino family?
Maybe he's meaning other families, other of the 5 families, skippers or
Skippers.
bosses.
I met mostly all the administration in the Lucchese family. I met all the administration in the Colombo family. Yeah, I mean, there was no favorites. Everybody, wanted to know what's up. But they were all respectful. They all loved John. I don't know about those Lucchese's. Those Lucchese's, that Joe C. and those Sideburns, those were real 2 garbage pails. But everybody else, that whole Joe Messina crew, they all loved him.
Yeah. Dan says, Lewis, did you know Greg Ryder?
I did. I did know Greg Ryder. In fact, I could tell everybody a story about Greg.
Well, Greg, who is Greg in relation to Mart Ryder?
That's his son.
Okay.
Greg lived in Merrick, and tough kid. He was good friends with my brother Scott. And Greg was friendly with John Alight. And I used to tell Greg, stay away from this guy. He's nothing but trouble. So one day, I'm living in Lido Beach, and Greg comes to me. And I would always talk to him. And he wanted to borrow some money from me. And it was sizable. So I says, is it for you or is it for Alight? So he says to me, it's for Alight. It was $100,000. I said, Greg, you don't need the $100,000, right? Because I know your brother, Michael. I know your mom, Dolores. I know your sister. There's no way you need that kind of money. So he says, no, A-Light sent me to you to go borrow it. I said, okay. Tell A-Light on Wednesday, not you, tell A-Light that you told me and that I have no problem. Tell him to meet me at the Ravenite Wednesday night. He says, Louis, are you serious? Are you crazy? No, I'm not being crazy. I don't want to turn you down, but it's not for you. I would never turn you down. You told me it's for A-Light. Wednesday came. Like you saw A-Light, I saw A-Light. So A-Light was looking to rob me. But Greg wouldn't do it, couldn't do it to me. Because I always had his back. Yeah. So interesting, right?
Yeah, it is.
What a web. What all these people from that life. A-Light didn't fear that I would go back to John. A-Light figured, you could convince Louis to give you that. It's not like you came and said, can I borrow $500?
Yeah.
Now, why would he ask me for $100,000? How would he know that I would even have that kind of money? I was in my 20s. You knew how he knew. He figured the relationship with the boss. If he doesn't have it, he has access.
Yeah.
I said, Greg, I'm not saying no to you. Come to the Ravenite. A-Light knows where to find me. And I normally didn't go that often, except for John said, what are you doing here? I wanted to have dinner with you tonight. I figured as soon as I got home, you're going to call me. You're going to beat me to come have dinner. We did have dinner. No Greg and no A-Light.
Never showed up.
Never showed up. So about a few weeks later, Greg, I said, what happened? He says, you know what happened. I said, all right. I said, but I do appreciate that. And that's just, everybody took shots. Everybody took shots back then. And I never went to John and told John the story, although I could have, and I could have buried A-Light. Yeah. But I didn't. But Greg Ryder he was a good kid. Good, tough kid. It's a terrible thing that happened to him.
What happened to him?
He was murdered. And they never had a body. The family never had any means, anything to bury. Yeah.
Well, Louis, we got about 180 people watching. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Let me know if you see any good comments, Louis. Louis, did John Sr. ever bring up the Aryan Brotherhood in conversation with you?
Nope.
I think Sammy speaks about them some.
Yeah. Listen, Sammy didn't know anything going on about John. During the trial, after the trial, before he cooperated, after he cooperated, Sammy didn't know nothing. He didn't know a fucking thing going on about John, about his defense, about anything I was doing. He knew nothing. So anything he says is a fucking lie. He's a fucking liar, a junk-pushing liar. He knew nothing.
Vibe says, Louis, you were a true friend to Johnny Boy. Even after all these years, you're still loyal. The rest of these people rob the eyeballs out of your head once you die.
That's who I was and who I am. His legacy is going to be told by me until it's not here to be told. But I'm gonna tell the truth about who this man was, what he stood for, and the kind of father he was, the kind of person he was. And through my eyes, and I was there. I'm gonna tell it the way who and what he was. Yeah. I don't care who believes me and who doesn't believe me. Fuck you. I don't care. You weren't there. You don't know shit about him.
Yeah. Ball is Life says, happy birthday, Lewis. You're a stand-up man. You were there for John and always will be. You know he's smiling down on you.
Thank you. God bless you for that.
Tin Pail TV wants to know, Lewis, what makes you say Richie Gotti killed Marjorie?
Like I said, Tin Pail, I don't know whether that's true or not. It's just I feel that because, like I said, she was a bit of a cuckoo bird, but I don't believe she offed herself. I think they were very concerned about her behavior with the judge and her screaming and her crying and all of that kind of stuff. So I think Richie thought maybe he would make it easier for Pete. Like I said, I don't know that, but knowing pee-pee brain, Richie, that's what John used to call him, pee-pee brain. So, yeah.
Ned Red says, hey, Lewis, much love and respect from Melbourne, Australia.
What's up, Australia? Isn't that where Tin Pail's from? Tin Pail, you from Australia?
I don't think he's from Australia. I can't remember.
Where's he from? I know he's from some country far away. Do we have, I hope he's not in Venezuela. Tin Pail, get out of Venezuela. You know Trumpy's going in.
I don't think he's in Venezuela.
Right.
I can't remember, though. Scott said he needs the merch.
Working on it, Scott.
Tim says Lewis has some amazing stories.
And it's the tip of the iceberg.
Detroit Ziggy says, Lewis, did you know Bobby Cabert, a pal of John's? He was a representative of the North Jersey faction of the Lucchese family. Are you familiar with any of the Takedas or Pern families?
I was very familiar with Bobby Cabert, and he was very close to John. Yep. Good friend to John. Yep. And he helped me a lot too, in the garment center. A lot of captains. Yeah, you got to remember, a lot of these captains hated Castellano. So a lot of these captains, after the fact, they all wanted to help John. So yeah.
Dan says, Lewis, what's the story with Stratton Oakmont?
Well, the Gambinos had nothing to do with Stratton Oakmont.
That is the what's the movie? The Wolf of Wall Street.
Right.
Yeah.
Jordan Belfort.
Yeah.
He was a guy from Long Island, heavy into other organized crime families. He went away, did time. They made a movie about him, and they made a lot of money. And he had Al D'Amato on his payroll too. Remember, we had a United States sitting senator on the Gambino/Lucchese payroll. You get what I'm saying, Jesse?
Yeah.
Phil Basile's only character witness. Phil Basile, close associate of Paul Vario, owned all the nightclubs with me on Long Island. Al D'Amato, as a U.S. senator, came into court as Basile's character witness while he was serving. Only guy. Mm. And the judge on that case, Judge McLaughlin, Phil was found guilty. Do you know what Judge McLaughlin gave him? Let me see it. Let me see Tin Pail pick up on this. McLaughlin gave Phil Basile a $500,000 fine and 2 years supervised release. Mm. After a conviction. Wow. And you know what happens to Judge McLaughlin? He gets promoted shortly thereafter to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. Who nominates him? United States Senator Alphonse D'Amato. So those envelopes Tommy Gambino and myself and Phil were giving him paid off.
The 401 says, was there anything happening in Pelham Manor?
Oh, yeah.
What was that, Lewis?
Pelham Manor. That was a stronghold, a Gambino stronghold.
Yeah, I know the name. I was trying to. Yeah. Dan says, Lewis, was Joey Buttafuoco tight with Gotti?
Never. No. Maybe Junior knew him because when Junior was poor, he started out in a house in Massapequa. And Buttafuoco was from Massapequa. So Junior may have ran into him, but didn't know him, But Senior never knew him.
Rob says, what was the most unusual thing John received in jail from someone?
Nothing was really unusual.
I mean, they can't send anything but
right.
letters.
I mean, other than letters and wedding invitations and Christmas cards and letters, that's all usual stuff, nothing unusual. Now, when he was in Springfield, when he was in the hospital that time, people would send cookies and flowers and things like that and sauce. But other than that, no.
Yeah, one thing that was interesting, and this is publicly, you can find it out there in one of those videos where John is on a visit, but he talks about a girl from Idaho, I think, that sends him something for like a book report, like she's like on a famous person, and she gives him some questions. He sends it back to her. And,
that's true. He did that with a few different kids, and the pilots, when they shipped John out of Marion, the pilots they flew John on a private jet. And the pilots' wives baked cookies, the pilot and the co-pilot on the jet. And when John got on the jet with the marshals, the pilot and the co-pilot gave John the cookies. He said, my wife cooked this for you, John. Yeah. Here's one. Is it true Sammy confronted you outside of an outhouse at a construction yard and wanted to make you go with him to a baseball game? D'Agasta, whatever your name is. Never, ever, ever. But thanks for coming in the comments. I think he was looking for you, though. Is your name Jack Russo? He might have been looking for you, buddy.
That reminds me of the scene in The Sopranos when I don't know if you remember it. I can't remember his name, but he confronts a kid in the Porta-John.
Yeah.
At a construction site. I know you've mentioned this before, and you said it would frustrate John and you would try to tell him, this was going on. But Jamie says, Lewis, did they keep a lot of mail from John? And then
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Also, did he answer mail from people he did not know, strangers that wrote him? We just spoke about that, kids and stuff sending him stuff. But you've mentioned this before about keeping, kept mail from him.
Well, one specific, they were spiteful bastards. John used to ask, he would say to Vicky, I want to, for Christmas, send me pictures of the kids. I want to see my grandchildren. And Vicky would send them because I would get them and I would also send them. I used to say to Vicky, you send and I send. Let's just see what happens. And they would hold back that mail. So on one of the visits, on one of the tapes that the government conveniently lets out, it shows John saying to Vicky, I get from JoJo, I get from this one, I get from that one. How come I don't get pictures of my grandchildren? But Vicky would send them. But the government, because they were demented people, they would hear John on the phone asking Vicky for the pictures and on the tape. So they would rip up that mail. Yeah, they would play with his mail.
The 401 with $2. I appreciate that. He says, do you respect anyone currently in the life?
If I would to say, do I respect anyone, it would have to be Gene Gotti. That's about it.
Ricky says, Stiggs will be disappointed you called Cabert a member of the Lucchese family and not a Gambino.
No, he's a Gambino. I never said he was a member of the Lucchese family.
No, he was referring to the question we asked a few minutes ago. I think he wrote it wrong. I think he wrote Lucchese instead of Gambino. Mm-hmm. I think he's referring to Tommy Stiggs. He's a good guy. Got a good channel on here.
Maybe I misunderstood the question.
No, they just wrote that he was in the Lucchese family instead of the Gambino family.
Pink Panther says Judge Block was everyone's judge. He wasn't everyone's judge, but excuse me. Judge Block was a wannabe guy. He loved the gangster cases. I'm losing my voice. Judge Block loved the mafia cases. So he happened to get a lot of the cases. And he used to talk to Pete sidebar and stuff during the trial, although he buried Pete at the end of the trial. Yeah. Mm. If you had to get a judge back in those days, you wanted Judge Garifas.
Yeah. Well, Lewis, so we've been going about an hour and 16 minutes. I think you've wore your voice out, man. You see any more you want to get to on here?
I guess that's good for now. Let's see. Bobby Caban. We're not leaving anybody out.
Frankie says, big ups, American made. Thank you, man. Glad you're here.
Yeah, the Augusta says again, was John Gotti working towards getting out of prison? Well, you tell me, how was he going to get out of prison? How? He wasn't going to allow us to apply for compassionate release, nor was he going to get it. He was on two life sentences. So I don't know what world you're in, buddy.
Vibe says, Lewis, did you know Greg DePalma? And what did John think of him?
Not too much. Big loudmouth.
Frankie says, A-Light is a councilman now.
Yeah. I think there's 3 people in that town. Here's one. Lewis, do you know Frank Goya? I didn't know Frank Goya back in the day or in the life.
Let's see. Trying to see if we got any good questions. Andrew says the chief was a man's man.
100%.
Lewis, the house that was on Growing Up Gotti, did Carmine build that place?
Yes. John never lived in there. Wasn't John's house. A-Light says people called him the sheriff of Queens and that he acted as the aide to the chief. I guess it's in his own mind.
Yeah, he said he was called the sheriff of Woodhaven.
Yeah, he's the sheriff.
Harry says, did John have his own barber chair at the garment business?
He did. He did have it. Angel married the Italian Louis Albano. That's true, Louis Albano, not the Jewish Louis. Maybe she should have listened to Senior should have spelled it out. Yeah.
Philip says, didn't John Gleason also have some sort of relation to Gotti, but it was 5 people separated or something like that?
He did. And it wasn't 5 people separated. That's what Gleason will have you believe. It was 2 people separated.
Matthew says that's straight out of The Sopranos.
I think he was talking about that, what I was mentioning a minute ago about the Porta-John or something.
Mm.
Vito goes up to the Porta-John
on a construction site. It's a funny scene.
Hey, this Johnny Boy says Angel is a sad case. She's not a sad case. She's just she was always looking for love, always looking for attention. She's not a sad case. She's a mother. She's a grandmother, and she's Angel.
Frankie said Angel's channel is an insane asylum full of degenerates.
Yeah, well, I don't watch it. Once in a while, I'll just add a comment, shame on you, but I don't really watch it. I don't know how her brother lets her do it. But here's one. Senator D'Amato and Rudy G supposedly received major campaign contributions. I can't speak about Rudy G, although I know his father was incarcerated for a while. But Senator D'Amato received a ton of organized crime money.
Will says, Lewis, Mr. Gotti seemed like a force of nature. Did you ever meet anyone with his charisma?
Never. And I met a lot of people in my life. Never.
Harry says, another great show.
Thank you, Harry. Donate to the channel. Subscribe and like.
You see any more, Lewis? Be going a little over an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, just looking. Here, this Ricky says, isn't Block, was Judge Block assigned to Borrello? I believe he was, but Borrello's not a federal person anymore. He's done with the feds for now, anyway. He's pre-trial in Florida, in Miami, from what I'm told. But he'll have an interesting ride, state time in Florida. Florida's no bullshit. Alphonse D'Amato never took a dime from anyone. He never stopped. Lewis, do you think John would have approved of the growing up Gotti? No, never. Transactional, my friend.
Muggsy says, Lewis, I like the Fu Manchu mustache and beard.
Yeah, Muggsy, I can't seem to get it together though. Yeah, I fuck it. I don't know. I'm trying to get like my mentor here, Jesse.
John Gotti's legend will live forever.
100%.
All right, Lewis, unless you see something, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up, man.
Yeah, I'm good. Jesse, it's, the sad part about the whole thing is like you look at John's family, like look at Peter's children, look at Vicky's kids, look at John's kids. None of them will never really know, none of them ever touched their grandfather. Angel's kids did. Her son and daughter did. They knew him. Vicky's kids, they were young, but they never had a relationship. They never saw him in action. They never, and he never enjoyed them and they never enjoyed him. Mm-hmm. You know, so at the end of the day, that's what was this all about? You know, other people in the life, you know, had all those things. He never had any of those things. He had no childhood. You know, not a great situation at home, and you know, yeah, Vicky and him were close, but like I always said, John was never a warm and fuzzy father until after.
Yeah.
And Junior became much closer to him while John was incarcerated. But on the street, you know, the kids were it was very rigid with them, except for Peter, you know, and of course myself, but I'm talking about his offspring. So yeah, it's, those are some things I think about. Like, you know, I look at Vicky's kids, you know, they only know what people like myself say or what Junior will tell them and what Vicky will tell them about her father. Angel the same way, you know, although like I said, Angel's son and daughter, they were older and they knew him more and they were around him more. But John's kids never really knew him. You know, they were babies, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, like John's son, who John the Third, who boxes. You know, I think enough is enough with that, Junior. Leave him alone. He doesn't have to box anymore. There's enough money. There was enough money before the boxing. Leave him alone. I see what the boxing did to Phil Baroni. It's enough. Let him go have a family. Let him give you grandchildren. No more boxing for John the Third. Invest your money, live your life, and forget it. He's a good athlete, and stop it, Junior. No more. No mas. No more.
All right, Lewis, we're going to wind it up. Again, man, I appreciate you doing this with me.
Okay.
Like I said at the beginning, man, hope you had a great birthday.
I do. Thank you. Thank you for remembering me. And let's not forget that everybody push that like button and subscribe. And you'll see Lewis and Jesse every Sunday, 7:30, 8 o'clock, here on American Made. Have a good night. God bless everybody.
All right, man. All right, guys. Thank all of you for watching. Be sure to hit that like button. Like Lewis said, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next week. Take care.